Deep in a South American rainforest, after dark, the largest spider on Earth is hunting. Everything about her says she is the most dangerous thing on this stretch of forest floor. She is not. And something far worse is down there with her. We'll come back for her. Her story begins somewhere else first. Somewhere you already know. On a warm night in early October, somewhere on a back road in Texas, a dark shape the size of a grown man's hand steps out onto the asphalt and begins to cross. If you've ever seen this, you know what your body did before your mind caught up. Your foot eased toward the brake, not to stop, but to aim. A tarantula out in the open trips, something old in us, something that says that should not be loose in the world, and the hand goes looking for a shoe, a shovel, the edge of a tire. Before you do anything at all, give her 1 second. Because that wanderer in the road is only the small, mild-mannered relative of something far larger and far stranger, living a few thousand miles to the south. To meet her, you have to leave the roadside behind and walk into the rainforests of northern South America. Into Venezuela, Guyana, the wet green floor of the upland Amazon, where the largest spider on Earth waits out the daylight in a silk-lined burrow under the roots of a tree. A man finds her there. He is a field biologist, walking a survey line by headlamp long after midnight, and he hears her before he ever sees her. A dry rasping sound rising out of the leaf litter, like two strips of Velcro pulled slowly apart. He follows it to the mouth of a burrow, and there she is, reared up on her back legs, front legs lifted, fangs bared and catching the light. She is as wide as a dinner plate. He can hear that warning from 15 feet away. Every instinct he was born with tells him to back off, and he does. And then, because he has spent his life learning what she actually is, he stays to watch. This is the Goliath birdeater, known scientifically as Theraphosa blondie, the heaviest spider alive, wrapped in a name that is almost entirely a lie. Over the next few minutes, I want to show you how she really lives, what she truly hunts down there on the forest floor, and why the people who know this spider best, the researchers who handle her, the families who share her forest, step around her burrow and leave her exactly where she is. By the end, the thing crossing that road in Texas may look less like a threat and more like a small piece of good news. Start with the fear itself because it deserves an honest answer. She is enormous. Her legs span up to 11 inches. She can weigh 6 ounces, about as much as a small apple, which makes her, by weight, the largest spider on the planet. Her fangs are no exaggeration either, reaching up to 1.5 inches at their longest and strong enough to subdue prey the size of a mouse or a lizard. So no, she is not harmless, and I won't insult you by pretending she is, but she is not interested in you. Her venom, for all the menace of those fangs, is medically mild to a human being. The bite is most often compared to the sting of a wasp. She has no reason on Earth to climb towards something as large and warm and useless as prey as a person. When she lifts those legs and hisses at the man with the headlamp, she is not threatening him. She is pleading with him to leave. She spends her energy on the bluff precisely so she doesn't have to spend her venom. The animal you should actually fear in that forest is not the spider rearing up in plain sight. It is the thing lying still and silent a few feet away. But we'll come to that. Look first at how she reads her world, because it explains everything she does. She has 8 eyes and is very nearly blind with all of them. She doesn't hunt with sight. Every hair on her body is a tuning fork for vibration, and the silk she lays down at the lip of her burrow works less like a web and more like a tripwire, a soft mat that telegraphs the footsteps of anything moving across it. She doesn't roam. She doesn't stalk. She sits in the dark with her legs resting on the ground and waits, feeling the forest floor the way you might feel for a heartbeat through a wall. Now, the name? Birdeater. It conjures something monstrous, a spider hauling songbirds down out of the canopy, and it is, almost entirely, false. The word traces back to a single image made more than 300 years ago. In 1705, the naturalist and artist Maria Sibylla Merian published an engraving from her travels in Suriname showing a large tarantula crouched over a hummingbird. The picture stunned Europe. It also wasn't even this species. It was a smaller tree-dwelling cousin, but the label stuck to the whole family and never came off. In truth, the Goliath almost never eats birds. Her diet is earthworms, beetles, crickets, frogs, the occasional small lizard. Some biologists have said, only half joking, that the only honest name for her would be the Goliath earthworm eater. The most feared spider in the world was christened by a piece of colonial-era art, and the name has been frightening people ever since. So how does she actually live? Quietly, and almost entirely alone. When something soft-bodied and slow enough crosses her tripwire, a worm working through the litter, a frog, a beetle, she is on it in a single motion, fangs driving downward, because her fangs strike down, pinning her prey against the earth. What follows is not violent so much as patient. She doesn't tear her food apart. She injects it, drags it down into the burrow, and floods it with digestive juices, dissolving the animal from the inside while it rests in the dark. Then she drinks it, slowly, over hours, until nothing is left but a dry knot of skin and bone and whatever fur or feathers it arrived with. It is a calm, almost surgical kind of feeding, and it is the everyday business of the forest floor, repeated every night across thousands of burrows you will never see. She is not invulnerable down there. A few times in her life, she must shed her entire skin to grow, and to do it, she rolls onto her back and lies still for hours, soft and defenseless, peeling herself out of her old body. It is the most dangerous thing she ever does, and she does it underground, sealed away in the dark, for exactly that reason. Her defenses when she's awake are stranger than her fangs. When a predator presses too close, a coati, a snake, a careless hand, she doesn't always bite. She turns her hind legs against her own abdomen and kicks loose a cloud of tiny barbed hairs into the air. They are nearly invisible, shaped like microscopic harpoons, and they are considered the most irritating of any tarantulas. In a large animal, they lodge in the eyes, the nose, the airways, and burn and itch for days. In a small one, a mouse pressing in too close, those same barbed hairs can be lethal, clogging its eyes and airways. It is a weapon she fires without ever making contact, a shield made out of her own body, and it is the reason she so rarely needs the fangs at all. Only the tarantulas of the Americas carry it. Her relatives across the rest of the world have nothing like it. Now, back to that stiller, quieter danger lying near her burrow. Because the same forest floor the Goliath rules is also home to the most feared snake in the Western Hemisphere. It's called the fer de lance, a heavy-bodied pit viper that can stretch 6 or 7 feet. And it is not a snake people exaggerate about. It is responsible for more human deaths than any other snake in the Americas. In Costa Rica alone, around 550 people a year end up in an emergency room from its bite. It hunts almost exactly the way the Goliath hunts, lying motionless, perfectly camouflaged in the leaves, waiting for warm bodies to pass. The two of them share the same dark floor, the same rats and frogs, the same few square feet of root and shadow. And here is the thing the word birdeater never told you. Years ago in Venezuela, the arachnologist Rick West wanted to know what would happen if these two met. He brought a Goliath bird-eater together with a fer de lance, and by his account, the spider killed the snake. Honesty matters here, so let me be exact about what that was and wasn't. It was a staged encounter, not a hunt someone stumbled across in the wild, and you should not picture this spider patrolling the night to pick fights with vipers, but it tells you something no amount of fear ever will. The snake that kills more people than any other on 2 continents is not the unquestioned top of that food chain. Set against a full-grown Goliath, even it can become prey. And she is not alone in this. Across the world, large spiders are now confirmed snake killers. The first time a tarantula was ever documented eating a snake in the wild came as recently as 2016 when researchers in Brazil found a different species feeding on a foot-long snake it had overpowered at the mouth of its retreat. And a sweeping review a few years later found spiders eating snakes on every continent except Antarctica, though most of those cases turned up not in the jungle at all, but across North America, and most often from the relatives of the common black widow. The Goliath's part in this is smaller and quieter than the legends would have it, but the direction is unmistakable. On that forest floor, the spider is not the thing the snakes have to fear least. So consider what you are really looking at when you find a creature like her on the ground. Not the most dangerous thing in the leaves, one of the few things keeping the most dangerous thing in check. The recoil you felt was aimed at the wrong animal. And then there is the part of her life that no one expects, the part that turns the monster into something close to tender. In the burrows of the Goliath's giant Amazonian relatives, biologists kept finding a second tenant, a tiny frog, the dotted humming frog, no bigger than your thumbnail, living calmly inside the home of a spider that eats frogs for a living. The spider doesn't touch it. She eats every other frog that crosses her path, but this one she lets live in her doorway, season after season. The leading explanation, and I'll call it that because scientists are still arguing over whether the spider truly gains anything, is one of the gentlest arrangements in the rainforest. The Goliath's worst enemy isn't a jaguar or a snake, it's ants. Columns of them, each one small enough to slip past her and devour her eggs while she rests. She can crush a single ant easily enough, but not a swarm of them pouring in faster than she can answer. The little frog, though, eats ants by the 100. So the frog patrols the nursery, clearing out the one enemy the giant cannot reach, and in exchange, it gets the safest address in the forest, the burrow of a predator nothing else dares enter. In controlled observations, the spiders have been seen sparing these particular frogs while eating others without a second's hesitation, apparently recognizing the right guest by scent and touch. The largest spider on Earth keeps a bodyguard the size of a coin, and somehow knows not to swallow it. Her family has one more gift, and this one may someday end up in your own medicine cabinet. The venom that makes tarantulas frightening is to a chemist a treasure. Hundreds of precise molecules, each one shaped over millions of years to switch a nervous system on or off. From the venom of one of her South American cousins, the Peruvian green velvet tarantula, researchers pulled a single peptide that locks onto a channel called NAV 1.7, the gate that lets your body feel pain at all. People born without a working version of that gate feel no pain whatsoever their whole lives. Drug companies and university labs are now in a quiet race to turn that spider molecule into a painkiller that works like an opioid without the addiction. It is still experimental. There is no pill yet, and the venom belongs to a cousin, not to her. But somewhere in the chemistry of a creature people kill on sight may be an answer to one of the oldest problems in medicine. Even the way she moves is a marvel hiding in plain sight. A tarantula has almost no muscle to straighten her own legs. Instead, she extends them with pressure, pumping the fluid inside her body outward to push each leg open, then using muscle only to fold it back. She is, in the most literal sense, a creature that walks on hydraulics. It's why a tarantula that has died, or simply dried out too far, curls slowly into a ball. The pressure fails, and the legs draw inward on their own. Every second she stands upright, she is held there by nothing but her own steady internal tide. That tide can run a very long time. A female Goliath may live 15, even 20 years, molting again and again, repairing and renewing her own body for decades while she guards a burrow, and when the time comes, a silken sac holding hundreds of eggs. The males get no such span. A male stops molting the moment he matures, which means his body can never repair itself again. And then he leaves the only home he has ever known and walks off into the dark to find a mate, with only a few months of life left in him. The patient, long-lived giant tending her young, and the doomed wanderer spending his last strength on one journey, they are the same animal, living two completely different lives. Which brings us back to the road in Texas, and to your foot, easing toward the break. The spider you'll actually meet is not the Goliath at all. It's her mild northern cousin, the Texas brown tarantula, and her kin, spread across some 15 states. The males you see crossing roads and porches every fall are not invading anything. They are on the single journey of their lives. A male spends 7 or 8 years underground, molts into adulthood, and then walks, sometimes the better part of a mile. searching for one female before the cold ends him. The ones out on the road in October are males who will be dead by winter, no matter what you do, spending the last of their lives trying to leave something behind them. Their venom is a bee sting. They want nothing from you. So here is what to actually do, and it costs you almost nothing. If she's indoors, a drinking glass and a stiff sheet of paper will carry her back outside unharmed. The same simple trick that works on any spider on your wall. If he's out in the road and it's safe to stop, you can slide a piece of cardboard beneath him and set him down on the side he was already heading toward. And if you do nothing at all but lift your foot and let him pass, that is enough. Because a tarantula in your world is not the opening of a problem. She is a reading on the health of the place you live. Spiders this size and only hold on where the ground is still rich enough to feed them, where the insects and the worms and the whole quiet machinery of the soil are still turning over the way they should. The wanderer on your porch isn't a sign that something has gone wrong. He's a sign that something is still going right. Crush him, and you don't erase a danger. You remove one of the quiet, unpaid predators that keeps the insects and the crawling things around you in check. The threat was never the spider. The spider was part of what holds that balance steady. And when you remove her, the only thing you've silenced is the warning. The man with the headlamp understood this, which is why he stood still in the dark and let her finish her warning instead of ending it. He knew the thing most of us are never told, that the giant rearing up at the mouth of her burrow is not a monster and not a problem and not even, in the end, much of a danger to him. She is a gardener of the forest floor, ancient, patient, mostly gentle, keeping the deadliest snake in the Americas honest and sheltering a frog she could eat in a heartbeat and never will. He watched until she lowered her legs, turned, and slipped back down into the dark of her burrow. Then he stepped over her doorway, careful not to disturb a single thread of it, and walked on. Ed on.